Requena. I'll be interviewing today Tyler Vega, who's running for Port Townsend City Council. Tyler, we have a quote here from you on Facebook. On the local level, the priority is housing. The big conversation is the future of the golf course. All this needs to be considered within the context of sustainability and the Green New Deal. Change starts at home. So on your website, we have a couple top priorities that revolve around the Green New Deal: affordable housing, sustainability and permaculture, resilience and disaster preparedness. You've included long-term goals being energy independence for Port Townsend, zero waste, and going carbon negative. Today, though, we're trying to keep these conversations pretty short so that more people on our pages can enjoy them. We'll mostly be focusing on the future of this golf course that you mentioned, community broadband, and progressive taxation, something that's been rather elusive to us here in Illinois as well. Before we get started, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, Tyler? You're a Washington native. Have you lived in Washington your whole life?
Well, that's a complicated question. I was highly nomadic for pieces of it, but I've always considered, Seattle's my hometown, and I've all of my kind of more permanent spots have been West Coast, but that, my stomping grounds are as far south as the Redwoods and farther south and up into the islands of British Columbia, really. But yeah, this is my home. This is my bioregion, and it's where my heart is.
Awesome. And how did you get started? Sorry, go ahead. But I was just going to ask you how you got started with your grassroots organizing. But if you want to plug in something, please go ahead.
Well, in the near recent past, it was really the Washington Bernie-Crats Coalition. I kind of left politics in the early turn of the millennium. I didn't feel like we had the oomph. I didn't feel like we had the people power to do much. And so I didn't really come back and engage until I saw a very robust movement. And so we basically came together, a bunch of no-names, and challenged every superdelegate in the state and ran this awareness campaign about the superdelegate issue. The fact that the Democratic Party was cheating and had been for our whole lives was kind of a big deal. So that's where it came from, and it's kind of distilled from that kind of high national focus to statewide. It became hardcore statewide in the subsequent years, and now everybody is trying to make it more and more local, and kind of translating this movement energy into where the rubber meets the road, which is in city council, mayor races, county commissioner races, all these races.
Awesome. Yeah, and and you've really gone into the weeds as far as like what you can do at the local level with some of these bigger ideas like the Green New Deal. You've really emphasized by going carbon negative. You want to explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, it's real simple. Carbon neutral. It's too late. If you look at any of the numbers, many argue it is already too late, and you'll never hear me actually pitch that. But it's not time to talk about how we can kind of slow the needle down. We need to go the other direction, and it's not that hard. It requires convincing an entire council or entire body of people that it's time to do it, and then doing it, and somebody has to lead the way. We're remarkable in this little strange corner of the world that we have a very progressive population. There's people are a little bit better off than the average human in the world, so we're kind of on the higher end of the privilege market. And we have market is a weird word for that. And we have a number of unusual advantages in the form of wind, solar, tidal, and just a bunch of unusual elements that we could put to work that others could not, and so we could therefore lead the way and create some models for motion. And it doesn't have to. You don't have to have all those things. You can, as was heartily pointed out to me by a local activist in this town, you can fix a lot of this stuff with just how you mandate parking. Because how much space you set aside for these legacy fossil fuel vehicles directly impacts how much carbon you put out in your town. So anybody can do it. And I guess in Port Townsend, we are going to be able to make these changes. The question is how far into the third millennium thinking we go, and how fast, and is it fast enough? So we really want to be the leaders in this conversation. We want to be creating and perfecting models for how you can become carbon negative. So by doing so,
awesome. You've been a big advocate for the Green New Deal. Could you please tell us how you're going to enact the Green New Deal policies? You say, like you mentioned this parking situation and things that we can do locally. Does that tie into the progressive tax idea?
Absolutely. I mean, we still live in this world where you do have to answer the question, how are you going to pay for it, period. You just do. And so progressive taxation, Washington has the most, arguably, but most people say it's the most upside down tax structure in the country. And that's because we have this total BS Supreme Court ruling, state Supreme Court ruling from the 30s that said that you can't have an income tax here. So we have all these weird workarounds to pay for our roads, like this kind of levy or our income tax and these property taxes that are all pretty exorbitant and famously broken. Our system really disadvantages poor and marginalized and working class people at a higher rate than everywhere else in the country, despite being one of the wealthiest states in the nation. Kind of like how the United States does that. Even though we're the wealthiest state in the world, we're pretty upside down with how we use that stuff and how much that's on the backs of the working class and the working poor. So the long-term goal is to actually challenge this Supreme Court ruling, and we're actively doing that already. It's already in process. We've already signed on to the test case. Seattle's leading the way, and we're kind of already doing what we can on that front, and that will happen eventually. It's not a matter of if, but when that will be fixed. And in the short term, I'm in favor of a capital gains tax. It's being used successfully in California right now. Inslee, our governor, is pushing it, and so it's almost a given that will come up. And capital gains just means if you have money that makes money, you need to pay for more of the stuff like the roads and all the stuff. So we have a lot of work to do on progressive taxation. Those are the kind of the basics and what I've been kind of trying to really introduce to people, because those things are coming and they are effective solutions to our problems right now.
Awesome. You've laid out like a great, list of things that hopefully Townsend could get to work on. But there's one issue that you mentioned quite specific to your town, this issue of the golf course. I don't know much more other than I know that these big development, conversations can become problematic and nuanced. What would you want to share, with people that are listening right now from the town about, what you would like them to know, your plans for the golf courses?
Yeah, well, I want to be real clear that this is a conversation, first of all. We have a housing crisis. We also have a climate crisis. Those things are diametrically opposed. Housing and people, we're kind of humans are the invasive species. We are kind of the problem in manner of speaking. We have to solve our problems while understanding that we also have to solve the problem that we are, so to speak. So when we talk about the golf course, which is crazy complex with all the agreements and the codes and stuff, there's nothing simple about it. But what we do know is that coming in, we have a lot of resources. We have this chunk of 60 acres that is currently wide open green spaces and serves a fairly small percentage of the population. And we have a climate crisis and a housing crisis. And so I'm really coming from a place where we need to do both. We need to definitely needs to include some housing and probably high density housing. And also we need to keep some green and ideally a lot of trees and a lot of stuff that takes carbon out. And we need to talk about how we use the space with regard to things like parking and how many automobiles are included and how we can make it accessible for people to decrease their dependence on fossil fuels. Definitely need to have solar on every roof. Solar's a no-brainer here because we're in the rain shadow. We're one of the few places west of the mountains where you can really effectively use solar. I'd like to see some wind. That happens to be in a wind tunnel, so there's a bunch of wind there. And the sky's the limit with that stuff. But on a micro scale, you can apply the Green New Deal. People think of the Green New Deal as being this federal thing, but don't wait for the feds to do that. We need to do it in our own houses. Right now in Washington State, you can go solar and you get this massive subsidy to do so. And that's the government trying to make it happen, trying to help it happen, trying to put the dollars in. People are generally too broke to do it. I'm way too broke to do it. There's just no way. But we can pull these things off on smaller, on micro scales all over the place. Talk about things like, water catchment is a piece of permaculture because we run out of water in the summer and it's really expensive. And I'm saying we don't actually, but people around here do. All you have to do is trap it in the winter because we're in a temperate rainforest. So there are small solutions that we can do on a micro scale in our own households. There are also ways we can apply this as a community. And so I think of the golf course conversation as how can we use these ideas of permaculture, sustainability, zero waste. How can we apply zero waste to a 60-acre parcel that can, in theory, even though there's a lot of hoops to jump over to do anything, we can do what we want with that. It belongs to the people. So that's the medium-sized answer. There's a very long answer, and I'm working on the shorter answer.
I really appreciate you, cutting down the answers a little bit because we're getting close to time. We hope to have you on again as we, learn more about the race. Really quick, do you want to let people know how they can help you and where they can find more information to get involved in the race? What's the best thing they can do right now to help you win?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest, the one shot, find all my info is at tylervega.com, just my first and last name, and you should have a link on there to everything, whether you want to donate or volunteer or an endorsement. We collect these endorsements. I think it's kind of silly, but it's a real thing. Facebook likes matter. I use my personal Facebook page, has always been an activist page, and it really is for politics and activism. So you're welcome to find me on Facebook, facebook.com/TymeVega. Time Vega is my first name and my stage name is Time, TYM. And I think, people who wish to engage, please do. That's an easy way to do so.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler, again, taking this time to chat with us a little bit about your race, your wishes, and we'll be for you on social media.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to more of it.
Thank you.